It's page 4. Give us this gold so we keep reading. I just wanted to track that. How are you going to leave masterpieces on the table in this short life? Hi everyone, welcome back. I am Asa. I'm the writer of 6 Sermons, the Audible series starring Stephanie Shute from Everything Everywhere All at Once. Today we have another week of writing. Last week was a great push on my psychological horror thriller Bully. There was a lot of outlining, there were breakthroughs, a crisis of faith. It was exciting. It was pure art making where you're in it in the trenches, just figuring out like, oh my God, is this thing I think that was awesome? Is it a piece of garbage? What is it? I guess most fundamentally, what is it? My goal this week is to take the progress that I made last week and actually start the book, to turn off any kind of analytical brain, to turn off any kind of how am I going to pitch this book brain. I'm going to get the voice of my manager out of my head, the voice of all the executives I've ever met out of my head, and really just try to let the story sing a little bit, just really try to write, give myself the creative space for that. To help engender a state of total flow, I am going to do this as analog as possible. The challenge I'm giving myself is to write until all these pages are finished. We'll see how far I get this week, but the point is, let's just tell a story. I'm going to jump right back in and get to a second hour of work today. But one thing I wanted to share before is I recalled this little piece of writing advice I got from the great playwright and actor Ellen McLaughlin. She said, never hold on to your best stuff. If you've got like a scene or a moment that you love, use it. Don't save it, because you can always find more good stuff. I don't think that's a hard and fast rule, but I think that's a kind of cool concept, especially in these early phases of drafting. It's page 4. Let's give us this gold so we keep reading. I think that's a wrap on day 1. I am really excited about this week because I think the challenge of just working in long form and forcing myself to get through this whole notebook before sort of revisiting a more schematic outline type brain on this project is really going to be generative. I think I'm already feeling like I'm getting in touch with some of the raw parts of the story, sort of tapping into my unconscious, reaching some kind of flow where the really good, deep stuff is coming out. So I'm super thrilled about today's work. You know, I definitely found myself finding problems on the spot and wanting to fix them. I mean, so many different kinds of things entered my head. For example, I wrote some kind of really contemporary slang and I was like, oh no, this is going to really date this piece. Okay, discard that. And, I had a moment where there was kind of this piece of characterization that I thought to myself, oh, if I plant this seed earlier, it'll have a better payoff here. The one thing I do give myself permission to do is this little trick that I've learned along the way of thinking about your target reader. So I have a couple people whose taste I really admire, dear friends, who, I'm writing, and at some part of me in the back of my mind, I'm thinking of them reading it, thinking about how they'll experience it. You should try it. It's really cool because it just keeps you on a line, and that's a line that you can always change, but it just gives you something to go on and keep going, and like a little bit of faith while you're having all these other doubts as you're writing, like, oh my God, this isn't working, this isn't working, this isn't working. That's just like kind of one place of consistency. Anyway, I found myself doing that. I was able to log about 25 minutes on the draft, which wasn't long at all, but it was super useful. I'm very excited about the library to see how far I can get. I did find myself getting distracted again, surprise, surprise, as I was writing, and it just goes to show the myriad ways in one you can sort of doubt yourself as you're writing. This time, however, I think it can be instructive. I'm going to share what I was thinking about. Last week, if you followed that vlog, I was reading Come Closer, the thriller by Sarah Gran, and as I was reading that book, I noticed a number of different cliffhangery sentences, things that just continually got me wanting to know more. And that made me think of these 4 writing strategies that I have on my wall. So these are 4 specific techniques. They're basically all kind of advanced techniques for foreshadowing, suspense, keeping your reader hooked. And these come from a book called The Sequence Approach. So as I was writing, I found myself writing those sentences, which is great. It was like, hey, cool, I'm inputting these great techniques into my story. But that also took me out of it. It got me thinking. It knocked me out of the flow state, the sort of pure storytelling mode. And all of a sudden, I was thinking like a script doctor while I was writing, which I think ultimately inhibits my progress here. So I just wanted to track that and share that with you. And I think kind of that haltingness that can happen is a clear sign of maybe sort of a beginner or an intermediate writer, where if you're fully an emerging writer and you've just learned about those 4 different techniques, maybe you're really going to be thinking about them, and they really might get in the way. Or if you've sort of used them before, like I used them in 6 sermons, my show, that's why they're on the wall in the first place. They're going in, but I'm still getting stopped. Whereas I think true masters of their craft, say a Sarah Gran or a Stephen King, have these strategies and techniques so deeply in their repertoire, so deeply in their writing rhythms, that they're just doing it instinctively. This is my guess, at least, or at the very least, doing it more instinctively than the rest of us who are learning. But I think that is a useful goal or aspiration, is to kind of have various tools in your toolkit of writing, of storytelling, of which gradually over time you don't have to think about them, you're just doing them naturally. I recommend that book, The Sequence Approach. And as I move forward in this project, I'm going to revisit it, because you know what, these are useful tools. I've learned them in the past, I've forgotten them, or at the very least need a refresh. And I think specifically once you're in a second draft, third, fourth draft process, it does become a really useful way in which to engage with the draft, is to look for opportunities to include techniques like this. So, I think, for example, a rewrite is not just places to find problems, but even once a manuscript is feeling really strong, I think it's valuable to look for opportunities. And it's like, hey, this feels great, but is there any way I can amplify this even further, inject it with more narrative strategies? It makes me think of the expression punch up that comedians use, or say SNL writers, like punch up a script with more jokes. So anyway, that was the last hour, and next we'll be at the library. Then an extraordinary wail arose, and bewildering fear came over the Danes. Terror struck them as they heard the cries of God.
Beowulf. Oh my God. What a poem. What a piece. That Cornell West lecture series that I was telling you about last week may very well be sending me on a serious classics trip, which I'm not mad about. I do love the classics. I do. And, I feel like you can never read those things enough. It's tough because there's so much to read. There's so much new stuff that I want to read, but there's so little time. And how are you going to leave masterpieces on the table in this short life of ours? The struggle. Anyway, solid writing session. It wasn't that long. It was only 30 minutes, 45 minutes, I think, and which wasn't long. I kind of hit a fatigue moment, and that was frustrating. But I'm trying to be kind to myself. This is something I think we all have to do as creatives, is hold space for ourselves to not reach our objectives in a given day, and trust that there will be time to find the solutions, to get the work done, to get the pages. Continuing to enjoy writing for freehand, especially in a grand, majestic, inspiring space like that library. I think that's getting me towards a rhythm and a flow that I can continue to maintain as I continue this first draft. That's all for today, and I will see you in the AM.
Good morning. We're back in the orange sweatshirt today. I got this sweatshirt last week at a thrift shop, and I kind of love it, so I'm wearing it. Great morning so far. I've made more progress. Here's the notebook. We're moving ahead. I logged a little more than an hour this morning, and so feeling energized, feeling positive. And then the other thing I've done so far this morning is I did revisit the sequence approach, that book I mentioned yesterday, and looked at the 4 different storytelling techniques, those 4 suspense strategies to keep someone's attention. Went back in the weeds on that and kind of dug up more specific information about each of those 4 techniques so that I can sort of learn those things, get them in the bones, get them in the system. I won't go through all of them, but they're so great that I did want to just sort of dig in on one of them, take an opportunity to share some of the things I'm learning here. One of those 4 strategies is called telegraphing. And telegraphing, you've seen this done all the time. You've seen it done today. I realized in this video where at the top I said, hey, later we're going to go to a library. So telegraphing is a really straightforward storytelling strategy where you tell the audience or the reader or the listener what's going to happen, and then it's going to happen later. So presumably you tell them something exciting, intriguing, suspenseful, something that we want to know, and then delay the gratification of finding out about that. So I told you about the beautiful library at the beginning of the video, and 10 minutes later you got the beautiful library. Other examples could be as simple as kind of a line of dialogue: meet me at the park at midnight, and then 2 chapters later we're at the park. Or, an image, we see a character buying a plane ticket to Paris, right? This would be an example of telegraphing as well. Sometimes things can wait till the next day, sure, but sometimes the next day has to start early. It is 5:30. I'm here at the office. I'm out of bed, up here on the roof working, and I have about an hour. I want to put in about an hour of work. I think you have to keep 2 things in mind if you're trying to get good at this thing called writing, is that you've got to be nice to yourself, but you've got to push yourself. And I do want to get a bit farther in the project, a bit farther along in the story before this week is out. And that's why I'm here. I've got a busy day ahead of meetings and coffees. I'm going camping with my kid tomorrow, I forgot. So I have a 4-day week, and I would like to get farther along. So I'm just going to put in a bit of a sprint before this meetup with Roberto in the mid-morning, where we're going to work and discuss the short film. And I'm just going to continue to try to draft. There's something particularly appropriate, I feel, writing by hand in this low, early light. I feel very romantic in this office right now.
Hey, Bonnie.
varios cambios.
Ah,
Eso es otra cosa.
ok, sí, es cierto.
We'll see. I think honestly, I'm going to have to outline a little bit, just a tiny bit, because I don't want to write too much that I don't use. Just like I got to have some kind of cities that I'm headed to on this trip from LA to Chicago, some kind of places that I know I'm going. So I'm going to have to break my rule just a tiny bit, but I'm going to try to minimize that. Fortunately, I have made outlines for this project, and I can kind of pull from those. If you want to see the beginning of this project and you didn't watch last week, here's that video, and I'll see you soon. Oh, and if you really want to know what I'm about, this week I'm watching Severance Season 2. I can't hard wreck it yet. The first season I loved. Cliffhanger of the first season, amazing. I don't know. No spoilers, but should I keep going? I'm 2 eps in. It's kind of all over the place. Anyway, let me know.